Hello and welcome to Back of the Net and Beyond, where today I'm going to be speaking to former professional footballer Kevin Ellison, who played for Leicester City, Hull and Morecambe, to name a few. How's it going, mate? Long time no see.
Hello, DT. All good to be on, mate. Yeah, there's a blast from the past, mate, isn't it?
Mate, long time, long time. Probably, what, 15 years or so?
More than that, yeah, I played against you, but for the first, mate, it was what, 2000, 2001?
Yeah, to be fair, you're probably right. So you're going back, what, 19, 20 years? So, yeah,
Yeah. And
ridiculous.
I still
Oh.
never had it then, mate.
Mate, you haven't changed. You look the same. So yeah, fair play for that. How's life at the minute? Kind of what you're up to at the moment?
Just recently, obviously, being released from Morecambe after spending 9 years there, and there was a change of gaffer come Christmas time. I took over for a few games before there was a change of gaffer, and since the new gaffer come in, I think he see me as a bit of a threat, and giving me P45.
Mate, it's a tough one. I mean, I know how you feel because I've been in that situation many times, and I'm assuming you have as well, where you're kind of in a situation where you're kind of looking for a new club, and obviously it doesn't help in the current climate that we're in a pandemic, and kind of clubs are kind of not really willing to employ people at this stage. But I'm sure you'll be fine. Obviously, for me, I'll vouch for you as a player anyway. And obviously, you don't play until the age of 41 if you're not kind of a decent player. So for me, you've been around the leagues, you kind of established yourself in kind of League One, League Two. I'm sure there'll be takers. There's got to be, and even if it's just a case of bringing you in just to be in and around the dressing room, because from what I can remember, you're always someone who was good in the dressing room in terms of banter. But aside from the banter, you're always professional as well. And in terms of your ability, you're always hardworking. You've obviously got great ability on and off the ball. So from that perspective, that's what clubs are generally looking for. And obviously you're fit and healthy. You don't play until the age of 40, 41 like yourself if you're not kind of looking after your body. So I'm sure you'll be fine, mate. It's just a case of just biding your time, really. But yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on again. For me, we touched on it before we came on air, and it was just basically just to let you know that, and let everyone else know that the reason why I'm doing the podcast is to make people aware that sports people do have transferable skills which are suited to other industries and not just sport. And sometimes you get stuck in that bubble, especially when you play football. You get stuck in that football bubble, and some athletes, some professional footballers don't know what to do when it comes to retirement. And so many times, like I've spoken to people before, even when I'm playing, and retirement sometimes can seem as a negative, and I don't want people to kind of feel that way. I want organisations and industry leaders to be aware that people like yourself do have transferable skills which are suited to other industries. So whether it be in an office or a warehouse or anything, and this is why I'm doing it. So once again, thanks for coming on. In terms of yourself, we first met when we were at Leicester. Well, I was obviously there, and then you joined from the lower leagues. And for me, one of the first things I noticed was kind of your work rate and obviously how determined you were. And I'm assuming that probably stemmed from you having played part time and you were working on, I'm guessing like a 9 to 5 as well. So for you to step into the professional game where you were training with professionals, good facilities, good club, we're in the Premier League at the time, and obviously you coming away from what you're doing into that environment, I'm assuming that was one of the reasons why you were so determined to obviously make it at that level or a higher level. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. As you say, I was obviously growing up, I played with lads who went on to do YTSs and that at professional football clubs, and I never got the chance at the time, and obviously stayed on school for another year and went on to work at a building site as a delivery driver, and then obviously got a chance to go and have a trial at Leicester playing part-time. So, yeah, I think I'm probably one of the most modest and humble guys anyway. I think I'm grateful for all the stuff that's been given to me. And as I say, it's not through people will tell you I lack this and I lack that. Yeah, I'm probably not most technically gifted player, obviously, to Grace League Two. Do you know what I mean? Especially, but there's one thing I've got to work rate, desire and hunger. Even to this day, I'm 41. I still got that passion and hunger and desire to want to work hard and want to go out there and still play. Do you know what I mean? So that's what keeps me ticking over. And it's probably one of the reasons why I say I'm still playing at 41, obviously, till Morecambe let me go, is me passion and desire, and as you say, me fitness. I think that should be a given in any professional football, in any walk of life. It should be a given as a work hard. I think I was brought up in my family to work hard, and that's what it is. I know you probably laugh because we're Scousers and Scousers don't say we work, but it's just, it is, that's the way I was brought up. It was like, you only get out of life what you put into it, and I think I've took that into my football career.
I think you do yourself a bit of an injustice there, Kev, because you said like you're not the most technically gifted player, but from what I can remember, you always had a strong left foot. Again, aside from kind of the things that you mentioned that are a given, work rate and putting the effort in, you're always willing to learn. And I can always remember, like I said, you had a strong left foot. You scored so many goals, and I followed your career, as you know, as you do when you kind of played with someone and you kind of go your separate ways. You kind of follow their career indirectly. And I always remember, like almost every week, you were scoring goals, and varied goals as well. So aside from kind of your long range shots and things, you always had like a bit of a fox in the box to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So in terms of being technical, I'd say you were quite a technical player. So I mean, like I said, you do yourself a bit of an injustice there. But yeah, so like I said, we met at Leicester, and obviously we parted ways, and our career paths kind of went in different directions. To a certain degree, we kind of established ourselves more so in the lower leagues. And obviously you went on to play for various different teams. You had a spell at Hull, obviously Morecambe, as I mentioned, and I think you played for Rotherham as well. And obviously you're always kind of in the team and an integral part of the squad, and always brought a lot to the dressing room from what I can remember. So I'm assuming it was the same kind of environment, the same kind of character that you took to those clubs as well.
Yeah, I think that was always a part of me. I was the laugher and joker at the pack. I'd get lads to do stuff, and as you say, apart from doing the laughing and joking, I'd be obviously one of the first in the gym, making sure obviously the younger lads are doing the rehab, just to pass some life experiences and some information on which probably I didn't get as a kid. I know obviously with Andy Impey, and as you say, obviously Sturridge and that was there. They took me under their wing a little bit and spoke to me, but I never really got information. But I think when I look at it now, back then, if they'd have told me stuff, I probably wouldn't have took it on board. So I think as you get older, you get a bit wiser, don't you, with obviously your life experiences. And as I say, to be in the dressing room and pass some stuff on to the kids, if they want to take it on board, well, great. If they don't, I say to them, you'll be working in Tesco next year. Do you know what I mean? No disrespect to Tesco, but that is the harsh reality of football, innit?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I say, you only get out what you put in, and you do pass as much information and much help on to the young lads. I've always been like that, and I think, as you say before about being in a dressing room and being around, it is. I see it now where, I might not play as many games, but I'm also at the same time with the COVID, and I'm looking at it and thinking, also I think people might see me as a threat in football, and I think that's why I've obviously broadened my horizons, doing a counselling course and stuff like that, because I've been through a few mental health problems in the past myself, and I'd like to, not just in football, but in life, just pass on a bit of help and a bit of know-how of how to get through certain tough times in your life, if you get me.
Yeah. That's massive, and it seems like, I mean, it's good that you want to give back, and obviously we'll touch on the mental health side of things a bit later on, because I want to touch on that, and obviously your experiences going through that. Do you think kind of what you've been through whilst playing, and the experiences you had kind of on and off the pitch and the mental health, did that help you to a certain degree, I say to the latter stage of your career? Obviously I'm assuming you still want to continue playing if the opportunity's there. So say when you were kind of 38, 39 and you're still playing, maybe not as often as you'd like, but in the dressing room, did the managers ever call on you as like an experienced player to say, look, maybe have a word with such and such who's 18 or 19, because they'll probably see you as a player, and they'll probably listen more so than they would to a manager, if that makes sense, because you've been through it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with you there, DT. There was times, obviously, in my last couple of years as well, as you say, getting a bit older, where obviously Jim Bentley used to come up to me and say, how's he? Go and have a word with him, see what's up with him, because he could see there was something wrong with players. But rather than, as you say, the gaffer go and speak to them, I'd be the little go-to. Not like the gaffer's eyes or ears. I wouldn't stitch lads up, and I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The gaffer knows that, because I had arguments in front of the gaffer regarding lads and that back in the day. So he did lean on me, though, towards lads obviously going to see if they're all right, and pass some information on to lads that who he thought the club may be able to sell, and if he just fucked his ideas up here off the pitch and get into the gym a bit more, stuff like that. So yeah, I was used in that way, but now I'll say it because obviously I can't get fined now, or I can't get sacked like they threatened to sack me, but over me tweets. But under the new manager, I don't think he was that way. I thought he seen me as a threat and basically had me training with the lads, the young kids, on a Saturday morning and isolated in the gym on my own. When I've been there for 9 seasons, I was, as I say, interim manager for a bit. I wasn't after any special treatment or days off. I just wanted to be with the lads and train with them. And for whatever reason, how insecure he was, because you know what football's like, he banished me to the sides and had me on my own.
See, what you say there, for me, it doesn't surprise me, just because I've been in the game for many, many years. And as you know, nothing really surprises you when it comes to football. But from the outside looking in, this is, again, one of the reasons why I want to get people on like yourself, because everyone's got a perception of footballers, good, bad, or indifferent. And what they don't see is the ugly side of the game. And the scenario that you just mentioned there, I know many people that's happened to, but they probably don't see that from a fan's perspective. They may hear it now and again and may hear a bit of a story, but they don't hear it with clarity. And for me, it's annoying that he said, like, the manager may see you as a threat. Even if he didn't, how he treated you it's not humane anyway. And those things generally only happen in football or sport. It doesn't happen in your everyday life. And football's kind of got its own rules and made its own rules, and it's always been like that. But for me, if I was a manager, regardless of how old I am, if I was even an old manager who's been around the mill, if I went into a dressing room knowing that you as a 41-year-old or 38-year-old or whatever it may be, had a strong presence in the dressing room, I'd use that to my advantage. And I'd probably use you as like my go-between between the players. And I'd draw on you for your kind of input and experience, rather than seeing you as a threat and thinking, right, I'm just going to discard him and make him go and train with the youth team or the reserves. For me, I've never liked that scenario where I hear players being banished to the youth team or having to come in on random days throughout the week and train on their own and stuff. I don't understand it. And again, when we hear people saying, especially fans, they'll say, oh, well, he should just sign his contract. Like, the club want him to sign, he should just sign it. And I always think, well, there's more to it than just signing a contract. If the club doesn't want you, they'll do everything they can to get rid of you. So why, as a player, should you just be a mercenary and just sign whatever's put in front of you? Surely you've got an option to negotiate or maybe turn down a contract because something elsewhere is more lucrative for you. Everyone's got a family, and if you haven't, you've got bills to pay and things like that. So there's many different facets and strands for players to consider. And I've heard it even throughout the lockdown, a few players kind of in the media, and they're talking about where clubs have kind of offered them a contract and they've kind of turned it down, and then fans are getting on their back just because they don't know the backstory to it. So it's frustrating from a player's perspective, and obviously that's where you need a tough skin. And as you know, especially in football, you need a thick skin. And obviously you've got that. And again, the scenario that you're in at the moment, whereby the manager kind of banished you and trained with the youth team and stuff, it's only him that's really losing out from that perspective, because the other players will naturally see that, and they would have known what you were like as a character anyway, especially the ones that you said you had a word with and you looked after. So for them to see you being treated in that way, it's not really going to bode well for them or for the manager going forward anyway.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I totally agree with you. And as you say, I could have helped him out, not just on the pitch, which I did even for a couple of games before for the January window coming. I helped him out there. He could have used me to better, because I know, and I'll sit here and say it, the lads aren't having him in that dressing room. Do you know what I mean? 100%. And I'm not just saying that even like bitter or that. They weren't having him as a person or a manager, like a coach. His man management, he's like, when you look at him, he's just, everything's about him. He was taking warm-ups, he was doing the fitness part of it, and everything was by him. If you go and I tried to have a conversation with him, because I heard like clubs were interested in me, which I was thinking, well, I'll leave and try and get a club for next season, then I'll go on loan, play a few games wherever that may be, I'd step down or whatever, and try and get something for next season. I found out in March that he was telling clubs that weren't available, but he'd have me training with the kids and not training with the first team and on my own in the gym. So I'm like, what's he trying to do? Because I never become a bad egg overnight. I never caused any trouble there. He just had this whatever about me that he weren't having me about the place, or But yeah, seems that when I sit here now and have a think about it over the lockdown, he's basically tried to ruin my career in a way. The last season or so, maybe I had.
I don't understand why managers do things like that. Obviously, so you're not in his plans. You're not even training with the first team. But then he knows that clubs are interested. But at the same time, he's saying you're not available. Now, for me, obviously, you've got a family. You've got bills to pay. You've got consuming mortgage or rent to pay or whatever it may be. But also for your well-being as well. Like, you haven't caused any issues. So why would he then? I don't understand why managers try and like hinder someone's career and potentially tarnish your name as well. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's selfish in a way.
Well, that's why I come to the end when I spoke to the PFA and that regarding obviously the situation I was in. I was meant to go in with the PFA the day before the lockdown actually started, and it got cancelled because of the COVID. So they basically wanted me to come out and put a statement out saying sorry and all that to him. And like I was like, why am I going to say sorry when I need a club in the summer? It looks like I've caused trouble. And then I've gone with the tail between my legs to say sorry to you, isn't that? There's no chance, like, you can sack me. So they basically threatened to sack me till obviously PFA stepped in, and obviously due to the COVID, we never got to the bottom of it. But it's just mad, as you say, because as you say about leaving players, I've given them 9 years of good service. I've probably, like people will tell you, I've scored goals which have kept them in the Football League. But as you see, when they see you as no good, they treat you like a piece of meat and you're off, throw you in the trash can. Basically, when I didn't want special treatment for being there for so long or taking over as temporary manager, I just wanted to be trained with the lads and treated the same.
Yeah, it's annoying, mate. And I'll be honest, like from a club's perspective, all the players are just assets anyway. And as soon as you're not wanted, more than likely they're going to do all they can to get you out the door. It's just, I mean, that's something that needs to change within the sport. Given the fact that there's so money and infrastructure in football at the moment, there's certain elements of it that are still a bit archaic and a bit old school. But kind of moving away from that, you mentioned kind of recently you've been doing courses in order to obviously help people when it comes to counselling. So how have you found that?
I'll be honest, DT, I found it hard at first, mate. I've not picked a pen up apart from an autograph for the 25 people.
Yeah.
So obviously, trying to do this course, I thought, because I've been through a few of my own problems, I thought I've got a bit of a passion to help people, and I know how football is, especially with the current climate of contracts getting smaller and me becoming 41 now. I know people are going to look at my age before they look at my fitness and what I can offer. So I was trying to just open my eyes to the real world and try and get on the counselling thing. And I've done it through the PFA, which was unbelievable. It was first week or two was hard trying to because I say I never picked the pen up. So to try and do a 1,500 word, 2,000 word assignments.
Wow.
Just basically thrown in the deep end every week. I was like, wow, this is a bit mad. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. And since I've done that, I've gone online and done a few more open university ones. I've started this business and sport leadership one now as well. So it's opened me, because I probably, as most footballers, think, oh, we're thick, we can't do this, we can't do that. But once I got back into the paperwork and pick a pen up, I've quite enjoyed basically doing the coursework and classwork type thing again. It's been proper eye-opener for me, and it's opened another few doors to which I thought I might never have, because as you say, you planned into football for 25 years. It's like, what else do you do? But I don't regret it, because for the last couple of years, I've had to do certain things away from football to probably still play at my age, recoveries, and make sure I'm swimming, yogas, and doing this. So I've not had time, especially with the kids. So I just wish, not regret, I could have done more of this coursework away from football when I was a little younger. That's one thing I'd give it to advice to the younger pros now, definitely, is make sure you've got something, especially because no one planned for this COVID or how this was going to happen and the effects it's going to have, not just on football, on the world. So just to be in the position that, you've got something else to your bow where you can just step aside from football and go down a different avenue of bringing some income in, as you say, for your families and pay for your house.
Yeah, it's true, Kev. I'll be honest, I mean, the stats are there, and I say this a lot, the stats are there to show that if you're an athlete and you've got something outside of your chosen sport that you're doing, say off the field or off the track or whatever, which is not going to hinder your performance, then it in theory, it's going to aid you on the pitch or on the field or whatever you may be doing. So the stats are there to show that if you're interested in something and you're pursuing it, you're probably going to perform better when it comes to match day or whatever it may be in your chosen sport. And I always remember when I was growing up, kind of, even though I had my own mindset and my own outlook on things, because the way I think is, I think laterally. So whenever there's something in front of me, I may see it slightly different to other people. And I remember many coaches kind of saying, "Oh, to other people, don't do that. Just concentrate on your football. Go home and rest and whatever else." And if you take that on board, that's where sometimes you may get stuck. And like you said, you kind of wish that you did something whilst you were playing. Now, for me, I mentally, I was prepared, kind of, okay, well, 23, 24, if I don't earn enough money, then I'm going to have to work probably a 9 to 5 when I finish playing. So my mindset was already there, although I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I didn't want to go down the studying route just because I didn't want to study just to say I'm studying. I wanted to, if I was going to study, it would be with an end goal. So study to do this, to then get X, Y, and Z and be able to do this afterwards. But I didn't go down that route just because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it's pointless me doing it. So again, that's another thing. There's no point in just doing something to help so that you can tell people that you're actually doing it. It needs to be it needs to make sense. It needs to have a purpose behind it. But yeah, I mean, any advice that I would give to any kind of young player, or even if you're kind of a player coming towards the end of your career, is try and pursue something that you're interested in. And you're always going to make mistakes. Sometimes you may go down the route of, I don't know, whatever it may be, and it may not work out, but at least then you can kind of brush that aside and know that that's not for you and move on to another thing. But yeah, I mean, in terms of obviously your counselling, I'm assuming that obviously certain things that you've had to write about or maybe talk about, you can kind of draw on your own experiences. So I want you to touch on kind of your mental health and kind of how that came about and when you first noticed that maybe something wasn't right.
Yeah, I look back now and I sit here and I think it probably started, what, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. I think it was just a build-up of obviously same things going on in my life, and then it was obviously football as well, which, you know, you're in and out of teams, and I was 31, 32, and as you say, you come to that age in football and you're ready for the graveyard, aren't you, basically, in football.
Yeah.
I know I'm still here like 10 years on, still playing golf, but normally you are. So it's just, it was stuff like, obviously, what am I going to do next year for provide for the kids? I need another contract. And then it was like managers telling you there's nothing here for you. And then there's times when you're injured and basically the manager comes and tells you you're dead wood, you're no good to the club. Stuff like that, I think all that had a impact on me going forwards, obviously, especially with my mental health. And as you say, it took me 8 years or something before I actually spoke out. I lived with my ex-partner at the time for 18 years or so, and for the last couple of years I was with her, she didn't even know I was going to counselling or that. I just knew there was something weren't right with me. I knew I was becoming more angry and snappy with the kids, and I'm looking at it as a football. I was like, it can't be football, because I was playing and I was scoring regular in my mid-30s. I was probably playing the best football in my life. So
yeah, that
all played a part of where it was. But in the moment, I don't know. It was a build-up of things which I let obviously build up where now I now know if it had spoke out earlier, I probably wouldn't have got to the situation where it was, where he had to go and seek help and stuff like that. And who knows? Do you know what I mean? You can never say never, obviously, with relationships as such like that. But my mental health with football, I think, played a part in, obviously, my kids growing up in separate homes now, if you get me.
Okay. So in terms of, because obviously you mentioned that you went to seek help. So as you know, as footballers, or people in general, everyone's got pride, and sometimes, especially men, they find it hard to come out. I mean, I'll be honest, I've never had any mental health issues. So I can only relate to what you're saying based on what I've heard other people say. Because as you know, nowadays, going back 20 years, no one really came out and spoke about it, but it's more readily available now in terms of the information, and people are more willing to come out and talk about kind of their experiences. So I think it's massive that you've done that. But when you actually were at a stage where you thought, I may need to go and get help, how did you find that process? Was it quite difficult to maybe go and sit in front of someone and speak about your situation?
It was when, obviously, you know, when the PFA come in at the start of the season and they're talking about, obviously, what they're going to do, your gamblings and stuff like that. And Simon Barker come in, and then it was what, about 5 years ago now, maybe 5 years or so ago. And they come in, and it just basically started where he was giving, obviously, help for the mental health stuff type of thing. So they give little cards out and pass these. And I went and spoke to Simon. Obviously, Simon recommended the call because at the time you had to be seen to call to get help. You can't let them reach out to you. Do you know what I mean? So there it was on the way home, and for whatever reason, I still remember it to this day. I couldn't call DT. I couldn't. I found it hard, and it was a week later when Simon said to me, "Did you manage to ring?" And I didn't. It must have took me 18 months, mate, to pick the phone up to say, basically, I want help. That's how long it was, because as you say, it's your ego thing. I was like, what are people going to think? I'm 30. I was mid-30s. I'm going to think, oh, no one will take me next year if I've got mental health problems. They'll go, he's over 35. He's got mental health problems now. We're not going to sign him. Stuff like that. So these are all things of what were going on in your head as long as you're trying to call him. Do you know what I mean? So it took me... It must have been 18 months before I actually picked up the phone, got the number, but just couldn't press the dial button on a DT to call him. Just as you say, it's like, he's a footballer. What's he got to be worried about? He gets paid X amount. He's played here. He's played there. But that's not the case. I'm just a human being like everybody else, and I've got feelings. But it was tough, mate. And then, as you say, to go and actually speak to the counsellor when they recommended me to put me in touch with this one in Liverpool, I went to speak to them, and when the first time I met him, I had a chat with him, and obviously broke down in tears, and I've cried in front of someone. I wouldn't speak to my ex-partner. I would speak to my mum and dad. But I went and spoke to this guy, obviously on the understanding it's trusting and he's not going to judge me, which is a massive thing. I think people think straight away, like, you get judged. But I went and sat and cried in his chair for basically an hour, and he's like, what's up with you? And I was like, I don't know, this, that. Told him. He's like, don't worry about crying. He said, I've had bigger, harder, stronger men than you sat in that chair in full tears, so there's nothing to worry about here. I'm not going to judge you and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So we started from there. Okay.
Wow. And then, so going forward, kind of, when you're going to see this person, kind of, did you feel that you were getting what you wanted in terms of, because I don't know how it works. Do they just listen, or do they give you advice, or do they point you in the direction of maybe someone else who may be able to assist you, or how does it work?
No, the guy I seen, he was more of a listener. DT, I went and spoke to him. Obviously, I had 10 sessions, I think, with him, and you go and sit with him and talk for an hour, but he didn't say nothing. He didn't make notes as such. And so come away from that, and he gave me little tools which I brought into my life, and I thought, I feel a bit better in myself. And then all of a sudden, another year or so down the line, I felt myself slipping again. And so we spoke back to the PFA, rang them straight away when I felt me coming over a little dark cloud. I rang them, and when they sent me to the same guy again. So after a couple of sessions, I then split with my ex-partner. So I had to get the kids from school, and I texted them the day before saying, listen, my ex has been on. I need to get the kids tomorrow. Can I just change my session to a later time, or come and see you another day during the weekend? He left me on a blue tick, and so I knew he'd seen it. He left me on a blue tick. I could have been crying out for help there, DT, and he left me hanging. So there it was again. It was another 2 years then before I plucked up the courage to go and speak to the PFA about obviously getting help again, because I felt myself going worse and worse. And when I spoke to the PFA, he was like, how did you get on with Thingy? I was like, he didn't. So I told them and passed the information on of what's happened. They were like, that should never have happened. Not to someone who's obviously seeking counselling and may need his help right then, and he's blue ticked you and not replied. So they put me in touch with another guy who then decided to come round to my home on it was a Monday night, 6 o'clock. It was ideal because I got home from train, had my tea, and then he called round, and the guy he sent out this time was unbelievable, mate. He's been through his own problems, so he knew with his life experiences what helped him and what ticked his boxes and that. So he done homework with me, which would give me stuff to go away and take that and jot things down as such. And so I think the PFA overall, regarding the second guy, was unbelievable in helping me, like, definitely. And I think, as you say, I don't think the first guy, where he would just sit and listen, I don't think he'd had any life experiences as such, where the second guy has seen and obviously helped me on the road to recovery to where I am today. played a massive part. He definitely has had his own issues, and I clicked with him, if you get me.
Yeah. I suppose it helps when you're talking to someone who can relate to what you're going through. It's similar to like when you're a player and a manager comes in and you know he's played the game to a certain level. Instantly, you get that person gets that respect because you know he's played the game or she's played the game. So they can relate to how things will translate on the pitch and stuff. So when you're speaking to this person, obviously they've been through their mental health issues, so they can kind of draw on their own experiences, and then obviously they can portray that and give that information to yourself. So I'm assuming from that perspective, it's slightly easier for you to liaise with that person.
Yeah, definitely. And as I say, it was good because during the lockdown, I knew like everyone was texting me, how's training going, how's this and that, because they did even, obviously through the lads, I was getting sent little sessions to do as such for a bit, and they were like, how's lockdown? I was joking and laughing and joking with them because the first couple of weeks I was like, I've been training since Christmas on my own, I find it all right, do you know what I mean? Just having a laugh with them because I was enjoying it, but then all of a sudden during the lockdown, must have been 6 or 8 weeks in, I felt myself overthinking them because I was threatened with getting the sack. I was coming up to, obviously, out of contract and seeing everybody in football when it's going to start again, and lads getting released and they're not getting new contracts even though the season's still on. I'm thinking, I'll go and get a job then. I'll do another job. I don't care and getting my hands dirty. I've got 2 kids to support, so whatever way and mean that needs to be done, I'll do it. But yet then I'm seeing on the telly, all people are losing their jobs, so I'm like, am I going to get a job now? Like, if people in football losing the jobs, normal people are losing the jobs, what am I going to do? So I found myself sat there overthinking just, obviously, the future and how it's going to go and this and that and football and such. So I obviously spoke to the PFA again and asked to speak to the same man because I felt my anxiety building up of me trying to predict the future of what was going to happen, not realising that 99% of the time it never happens anyway.
Yeah, true. I mean, based on what you just said there, I mean, I'm by no means a psychologist or anything, but what I tend to say, especially in my own household, I always say control the controllables because everything else is out of your control. So by you thinking, like watching the news, everyone's losing their job, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are losing their job and they're being furloughed with no pay and whatever else. But at the same time, there's opportunities there. So naturally, because we're in a pandemic, there's going to be opportunities. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for the lockdown, because initially how I wanted to convey my message regarding transferable skills and retirement and transitioning from sport to another career, I wanted to do something else, but still have the same message. But because of the lockdown and me working a 9 to 5, logistically it wouldn't work. So the pandemic, the lockdown kind of was a blessing in disguise for me because I still can get my message out there, probably reach more people just via Zoom, and that's how I do it. So for me, there's always an opportunity in something. And like I said, there are people, I know for a fact there's people looking to employ people still at the moment, just from speaking to various different people that I know in different organisations. So don't be discouraged by what you see on the news. Obviously, that's just a small portion of it. There's always going to be something out there. And you've got the right mindset because obviously you mentioned before that you've obviously got kids, you're willing to do anything. You've already been in that working environment prior to obviously going to Leicester. So you know what it's like to work a 9 to 5 and that. So it's not really going to be anything new, but you've already got the mindset there to aid you anyway. So from that perspective, I think you'll be fine anyway. And you may even get an opportunity to play in football again anyway. Who knows? So only time will tell from that point of view anyway. But just to go back on what you said about speaking to that person who the PFA recommended to yourself regarding obviously helping you with your mental health issues. Whilst that was happening, I'm talking kind of at the start, were any of your teammates aware of what you were going through at the time?
No, mate, no one at all. Not even my partner. I'd sat on the couch with my partner and she didn't know I was going to. At first, I went to a few anger management classes because I paid for myself without the PFA because I didn't want the PFA because at the time you're going, if I go to speak to the PFA, will they tell the football club how will that affect me? So I ended up going to a few anger management sessions myself and come away from there with obviously bits of homework and tools which they gave me, so it was great. And then I felt myself another year down the line going to the same. We would have the same arguments with my missus. I was becoming snappy and angry in this. And I thought it was just anger management. I thought it was me just being angry. as a lad on a football pitch and as off it. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
when I look at it now in the bigger picture, anger was part of my depression then, my snappiness, and people around me were on eggshells because of the way I was, because certain things happened in my life and certain things happen in football. Do you know what I mean? So, as I say, no one in football knew. My ex-partner didn't know. There was only me coping with it and trying to deal with it myself. Do you know what I mean? Which now I know is the best way about going things.
Yeah, I mean, I always say, well, you hear it a lot now, it's best to talk. And like I said before, by no means am I a psychologist or a consultant or anything like that. But if you ever want to pick up the phone to me, mate, I'm always here kind of anytime, even if it's kind of early hours in the morning and you're kind of feeling that you don't want to speak to your partner or the other person that you normally speak to is not available. Just pick up the phone. I'm all ears, mate. I'm happy to assist in any way I can. In terms of, I'm going to ask you to sell yourself now. So you need to obviously have a few things, because there could be a few things.
I don't have to. I'm going to get used to doing my CV from the start of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. So again, get your CV sorted, because from a sports point of view, a lot of athletes will just think, well, I've only played sport, so on my CV I'm going to put down how many medals I've got or how many games I've played. I'll be honest, most companies, if not all companies, are not really interested in that. It's just a talking point. So yeah, include it on your CV, because obviously that's part of your life. But I always say to people, especially people in sport, they want to know what you can bring to the company, what you can bring to the office, which essentially is the dressing room, if you want to talk kind of football terms. So you want to bring your character, and obviously it needs to fit in with what the company's ethics are and what they're looking for that specific role. So if you're resilient, put down that you're resilient. If you're a good communicator, which is a massive thing again, put that down. But it needs to be relatable, and you also need to back it up. So, for example, if you're putting those things down and then you get in an interview situation and they're asking you to give examples, if you've lied, you can't really draw on those experiences. And if you do try and lie about it and try and back it up by lying about something that you haven't been through or an experience that you haven't actually lived, it will naturally come through in how you talk anyway. So for me, you've got loads of transferable skills, just because I know you on a personal level, so I know what you've got anyway. But as I mentioned, I want you to sell yourself now. So anyone that's listening out there, I'm assuming obviously you're open to offers from footballing point of view, so on the pitch or maybe off the pitch in the football fraternity, but also kind of outside of football, so an industry which is completely away from football as well. So I want you to sell yourself. So like, what transferable skills have you got? What would you bring to the organisation, or even within football as well?
Yeah, I'll try and take it away from the football, DT, because as you say, football, I've even doing my own CV, and it's as you just jotted on it there, everything's just like football. I've got the odd little here bits and bobs, but it is all football. So away from football, I'd like to think, being in that environment of football, I've come away with it, learning so many good attributes. As you say, I didn't realise till I sat down during the lockdown that I've actually got skills which are transferable to leadership, to communicator, a good communicator, to, as you say, resilient, hard-working. Definitely, I think that's probably up there with me. That'll be my little star, that my hard-working one, because it's been a part of my life all over it. I'm humble. I come from a Nottingham background. I appreciate certain things. I've had life experiences which I know many people have had, and I know many people do have but don't speak out about it. So I can bring them to the table and obviously help people in the environment, whether it's in a workplace or it's in a factory or whatever it could be. I definitely think I can bring people on, and I can definitely open people up. I know in the environment, from me getting to speak to them, I will be able to eventually get people to open up. And I know now, by me being through certain things in my life, that I know how people hide theirs. So I can see it in other people now. I can not judge people, because I would never judge people, because it's not a good thing, but I can understand them, the behaviours of what they do and such like that. So regarding that, I think being 41 and bald, I can bring a lot to your business and to your you know what I mean?
Mate, like I said at the top of the show, I'm sure you'll be fine. And what I would say to yourself is don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen straight away. Don't be afraid to ask and network. We're both on LinkedIn. That's obviously how I got you on the show. But I always say, and I've said many times before, and people probably getting bored of me saying it, but if you don't ask the question, the answer is always going to be no. And no one's really going to reach out. As you know, as soon as you stop playing, the phone generally stops ringing. And luckily for me, I never relied on that anyway, just because I was never really in that football bubble. I was always myself first and then a footballer second. And you're pretty much the same from what I can remember. And there's a lot of players out there who are just stuck in that bubble trying to live up to certain expectations and they can't for whatever reason, whether it be financial or down to their kind of personal psyche or whatever. And this isn't me knocking footballers, just because I always say, look, in terms of finances and your network and what you can achieve and do as a result of being a footballer, go and do it. I hear many people saying kind of, oh, you only kick a ball around, how can you be earning 40 grand a week? Well, everyone wants to be a footballer and not everyone can. So it's not just a case of kicking a football. Get what you can get. And in any walk of life, again, I always say, if you're on a building site and you're earning, let's call it, I don't know, £1,000 a week, and someone offers you an opportunity to go and do the same thing, or maybe give you an opportunity where you're kind of more well regarded in that company, a higher position, for more money, you're naturally going to go and look at it. So the comparisons are more or less the same, although the difference in money in football is obviously there's a massive difference there. But in terms of the reasons why people may move from club to club, it's exactly the same as why someone would move from company to company in a 9-to-5 job. There's no real difference there. People have got bills to pay and things like that. So from that perspective, I just wanted to get a message across. But I think you'll be fine, Kev, honestly. And again, I hope it all works out for you. In terms of moving away from that, like I said, thanks for coming on and whatever else. I always ask the question: Do you think more can be done for footballers or athletes in general when it comes to retirement, in terms of more help from either organisations or the club that you're actually affiliated with? Is there more help that they can give a player when it comes to retirement?
I think that can work all over, DT. I think it can work. Obviously, clubs can do a bit more. Definitely to help you towards, obviously, life after football. And I know some people will say, well, you only had a club, one person might be there for 6 months, even though he signed 3 years, or he might be there for 3 years, but he might be there for 9 years, like me. So, the likes of that, I think definitely, I think the PFA can help more. I think regarding maybe when I look at it now, it might sound a bit mad, but making courses mandatory. So you've got to do another course away from your football.
Yeah.
Like, we all get our Wednesdays off, and we all love, obviously, Wednesdays, your PlayStations, your Xboxes and chills and stuff like that. But to make sure when you get a contract, well, you've got your contract there for 2 years. Well, for them 2 years alongside that, you're going to study something that you've got a bit of a passion for, that you can, away from football. So if, i.e., like it happens now with the COVID and now the lower leagues, I think a lot of lower league teams are going to be knackered. The squads are getting smaller. The budget's not going to be there. So while this has happened, me, for instance, even could have had a qualification there somewhere that maybe I can take away from the football field and go and support my family in another way.
Yeah, that's so true. And I've said this in previous podcasts as well, where it, like you said, it should be mandatory or introduced at a young age. And in terms of the podcast, this isn't just for kind of young footballers or young athletes. It's for people like yourself as well, and anything in between. Because we can all learn. I always say, look, you never really stop learning. People say practice makes perfect, but I always say practice makes you better, because you can always improve, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For me, I've spoken to people and I've been through the situation where, as a youngster, you got the opportunity to go to college. Well, I never had to do that, just because at Leicester they saw me as someone who was probably going to push on. So when everyone else was going to college, they said, well, just come and train with the reserves or whatever, which is fine, because I wanted to obviously make it as a professional. So as a player, when you hear the coaches saying that, as a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old, you're obviously going to listen to your coaches. But what I would tend to do is, I would always speak to the lads who have been to college, and I'd say, oh, like, how was college? What do you do? And most of the time, it's just a case of nothing. They just messed around, and it was seen as like a bit of a day off. So for me,
Yeah.
that perspective, they need to change that, because I don't know how it works now. I don't know if they still have to go to college or not, or if it's taken more seriously. But maybe if they stepped away from that and gave the players something which is slightly more tangible. So if it was a case of, instead of going to college, if you don't want to go to college, then maybe go and work in an office somewhere for half a day or for a day.
Some work experience type
Yeah.
thing.
So basically like a work placement, and go and work in a warehouse or something that, even if you're not interested, it gives you a further insight into what actual life is like outside of football. And even if those players went and, say, worked in a warehouse and came away thinking, that was horrible, didn't like it at all, that may even improve them on the pitch.
Yeah, it
They
might
may
give them a kick up the backside, thinking, I don't want to go to there. I'm going to put a bit more into football.
Exactly. So from a club's perspective, it's a win-win for them, because essentially it's not going to cost them anything. Because if you go and speak to any organisation and you said, right, we're going to have Kevin Ellison come in, or someone with more of a high profile than yourself or me, it's an asset to them, because then they can say, well, we've got John Smith coming in who plays in the Championship or whatever, or is an aspiring youngster, maybe an under 23s or under 21 international, or whatever it may be. So from a company's perspective, they've got nothing to lose. I always think that if I was given that opportunity when I was playing, I'd probably take it up, just because it would get me to see things from a different perspective. Everyone's got a perception of athletes anyway, as I mentioned before. So it would give you an opportunity to go and give them an insight into what you're actually like as a person. Because invariably, Kev, as you know, people see you on the pitch and think, oh, Kev's just a thug, he's an idiot, or whatever it may be. And then when they actually speak to you, it's like, oh, I didn't know you were like this. I didn't know you were this polite. I didn't know you knew certain
How many
things.
times have I had that, mate?
Exactly. And obviously, with you being a Scouser with a skinhead as well, naturally people are going to have a certain perception of you anyway. Yeah. So again, it's just something that I've kind of thought about over the last month or so, and I think what you touched on it there about kind of maybe making it mandatory, and maybe in the next 5-6 years or whatever, it may be that way. But who knows? But yeah, I mean, great insight. I mean, good to catch up. We haven't spoke for years, and
long time. Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on and obviously telling your story and stuff. And like I said, if you ever feel the need to just call me or message me or whatever and have a chat, because sometimes it's easier to speak to someone who is outside of your family network.
Yeah.
So just give me a call if you ever need to. But like I said, just be positive about kind of your next kind of career path. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Well, that's what I was. I'll be honest, DT, over the last couple of weeks, like the May and June, I was getting a bit worried, you know what I mean? But it's like you just said, you control the controllable, do you know what I mean? And as you say, things mightn't just happen just now. It might be in another month or 2 months, but don't worry about it, do you know what I mean? And they're words that like I can take them away from this and even use them for me now, do you know what I mean? So it was a pleasure to be on, mate.
100%, mate. And use your network as well, because while she's kind of still involved in the game, you've got a massive network. Even though you may not realise it, you've got a massive network. And obviously, we're on the WhatsApp group as well, which is a good thing. So that's a good way to obviously get an insight into what other people are doing, and obviously how they went about getting into whatever they're doing at the moment. So, but yeah, like I said, keep in touch, and thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed chatting to you, and all the best for the future, mate.
Cheers, DT. Pleasure to be on, mate. Thanks very much.
No problem. Catch you soon. See you later.
Take care, mate. See you later, DT. Bye.
Bye, mate.